That's your papers, and we're going to start with the shot clock. It's the shot clock. It's with Kieran Donaghy every week. It's fairly simple. We get 7 topics. We've got 2 minutes. The air horn sounds at the end of it, and you guys can declare your own winner after that. But I think it's always pretty clear what happens, right? Isn't that the truth, Kieran? Everybody knows what happens.
Well, that's what you say at the start of every show, Joe. So we're just going to go with that for the meantime.
Let's start. Mayo for Sam. Kerry for your holidays. Mayo for Sam. That's what we're thinking after the league at the weekend. I think you had Kerry to win by 4 points, and did they lose by 4? What happened here, Kieran?
Sure, it's I had Kerry. I fancied Kerry to win. They lost in the league game in bad conditions in Tralee, and I just fancied them to have that kind of hunger and that probably a bit of an edge about them, trying to rewrite that wrong. They were right in the game. It's a funny one. I've watched it twice. We're disappointed to lose. But at the same time, having not played great, we're kind of right in the game late on. So it's a bit of a confusing one for me.
Let me get to your analysis a little bit later on, because I want to specifically talk about the level of celebration that happened afterwards. Kerry famously celebrated the 2017 league final fairly hard. Here's Andy Moran celebrating this because it's his first league title after 6 million games. Have a look.
If I'm being honest, if you asked me 8 a.m. this morning, but I'd be saying it's a National League game, it's final, would love to win it. But you hear the music afterwards, you see the goal going in, and until you experience that, I don't really think you can imagine how important it is. And if I didn't experience it, I'd have never known it. But I'm very happy now that I've experienced it and seen it. And listen, we need to build now for the summer and try to go for the big one.
Yeah, sometimes these things don't matter, but this one feels a little bit different. It feels like it might matter, Kieran.
It does, and to be honest, for fellas like Andy and Keith Higgins, I'm absolutely delighted for them, because they've put in a lot into that Mayo jersey, and you know, it is about winning things, and the National League is a really big competition now. It's the most competitive out of all the single competitions. Probably you get to the when you get to the knockout stuff in the summer semi-finals and finals, it's at its peak then. But the league is where it's at right now, and you know, they've won the league against a lot of very good teams. And they had a shaky patch through the middle of it. So I think I remember people saying like 4 or 5 weeks ago that Mayo, after losing to Galway and they got hammered by the Dubs in Croke Park, that they were gone. Now Mayo are back. So it just shows you from game to game how much it can change. But no, great to see Andy and the boys, and great to see the Mayo fans after the game. People said did they over-celebrate? Not a hope. Enjoy it. Every win's a big win in Croke Park.
Yeah, you guys know that very well. Here's 2017. You're celebrating. Look. Bottom left corner. This is a Tommy Rooney video special here. Dean Rock hits the post, and who's that jumping on the pitch?
Yeah, you'd swear you put a lot into that league. Rocked up for the final, having not trained all year. But yeah, no, look, exactly. They're there to be won. That was a big one going against Dublin, because they were so dominant at the time. So
if only you got a chance to show them in the summer.
Yeah, you never know. You never know. There's teams lining up now. We'll see who comes.
Next up,
OldFirm Taunts. Just watching the game last week and watching Scott Brown at his very best, just reminded me of some of the games that we used to play against teams that were good at taunting you and good at taking you out of your comfort zone.
Who? But name names. Who's good?
Tyrone.
There you go. We knew it. It's Tyrone.
Yeah, they were. Yeah, there's Joe McMahon, and Joe. I learned a lot off of Joe, actually, because in 2008 he was there. You see him holding his head, nothing wrong with him, but just I'm looking down, kind of going, "Oh my God, get up off the floor." But yeah, no, they do test you, but it's kind of always gone on. Like if I look at what certain teams.
Who's that?
Yeah, that's probably me doing a bit of taunting, but that's me reacting to the taunting from Paul Hearty. But it's always gone on the game, Ger. It was more physical back in. If you look at soccer games and football games back in the 70s and 80s, it was physical threats that fellas were saying, you come in here now and I'm going to break your legs, and that's what was going to happen to you. Whereas now it's gone, you can't really go there.
And then you're all friends again.
Yeah, and that's the learning point I took from it is are you willing to go to the edge of the line to win for your team on the biggest day? Are you going to do that in a physical manner, but are you also going to test your man on a mental level and see is there flaws in him, and see is he going to crack? And you see golfers, you play against golfers, and you see them starting to crack, and you see the pressure starting to mount on them. That's without any talk. So if you can crank up the talk a bit, it's gone on in basketball for years. Trash talk, Ger.
Yeah, totally.
Sledging, they put up loads of names on it. But
what if it goes too far though? What if, like, so you've heard of numbers being written of like family members, girlfriends, wives, whatever? Is there
too far? That is too far. I don't agree with taking it there, but I do agree with testing your man to a certain level and just really finding out, is this fella mentally tough, or is he going to crack? Because if he cracks, and we see golfers cracking, you see their game going all over the place, that can happen to sports people in every court. You react to Herty, but you scored a goal past him, so like that's okay. Have there been times when you've reacted to people and you got carried away and you shouldn't have? Yeah, absolutely. There was 2 games in 2007 that I got sent off in the league for reacting to both verbal and physical stuff, and I kind of made my mind up after then to play the rest of the career the way I did, which was kind of be in your face and try not to be the guy that's reacting, basically. You are the one who will be reacted to. Well, yeah, exactly. Yeah. I'm the one who knocks. Test their pulse. All right, the next one is March Madness. Here's the story, right? We have, for anybody who's unfamiliar with March Madness, it's this month of basketball where the best college teams in the States go for a straight knockout. All of America goes completely mad for it. People do brackets. Very hard to actually win anything with those. And it gets this massive coverage and hype and audience, and it's a real sign of if you put stuff together and make knockout things happen, people are interested. It's like a World Cup for college basketball every year, and it gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and the players get nothing. Yeah, the players get nothing. We've got Michigan State versus Texas Tech, and we've got Virginia versus Auburn. Them games are on at 10 and 12:30 this Saturday. So if you want to watch a real high-level college basketball, tune into those games, because those kids will be literally dying to win the game. They'd fight in their back to win the game. But it's amazing the viewership these kids are getting. A lot of them are 18. The varsities this year are on this week in Ireland, where the college teams go play. And the difference between a college player in America and a college player here, like, these games are getting 20 million, 30 million viewers for an 18-year-old playing at the highest level with his whole family watching, and it's serious pressure on 18 and 19-year-old kids. It's literally amazing what they're doing. You're right, they don't get paid. Some of them will go on to the NBA, some of them will go on to Europe, some of them will go on and never make a bob out of basketball and just go back to a working, a regular 9 to 5. But interesting enough, the players get nothing, but John Calipari, who's the head coach of Kentucky, there was talks of him going to UCLA for 48 million over 5 to 6 years. So, wow. Yeah, that's big money, right? Yeah, wow. Coach college kids. And like, they never make it. Do they make it to the NBA sometimes? Is that where does the NBA come looking for? Yeah, that's like all the top players in this March Madness will, a few of them have already declared that they're going to the NBA. But if you're a coach, is this a pathway to become a coach in the NBA or not? It's nearly the college job. A lot of them prefer coaching the college kids, because when you're coaching college kids, they're there on scholarship. You tell them be there at 9 o'clock if they're not there at 9 o'clock. And you see, like, there was Tom Izzo, the great coach from Michigan State, who's also got his team. There he is. He's got his team. He'd a row with that kid Henry there during March Madness, and there was a big debate about, is that style of coaching gone? He was really aggressive with him. He's in his face coming off. I think there was a bit of showboating at the end of a quarter, at the end of the half, or just before timeout, and Tom Izzo is right in his player's face, and he sits him down into the huddle of the bench, and he goes at him again, and people are saying, that type of coaching is gone. Yeah. I was loving it. Yeah, we all want to pat each other on the backs, and we all want to be cool in the dressing rooms, and that's all well and good, but there has to be a small bit of both. You can't just be this melancholy guy. Did you have coaches like that who would... Yeah, I did. I had guys got in my face. I always reacted well enough to be honest, because I nearly want to prove them wrong if they went at me about something, by doing it better, which is probably what they want you to do in essence. But I've had both, and I like both. But I think the coach that has the at the right time that he can spark you. What'll you be? I'll be possibly a bit calmer most of the time, but then there will be a time where I will call somebody out if I feel it needs to be done. Yeah, all right. Yeah. In their face, shouting at them? Yeah, maybe not as bad as Tom Izzo was there with young Henry, but yeah, could get out of hand. Topic 4, Shaky Liverpool are still winning. So yeah, I've looked at the run-ins, and I wasn't so confident a few months ago, but Ger, I think Liverpool might do this now, 6 games to go.
If they do, it's going to be the greatest achievement that we've seen in the Premier League. It'll be as good as anything.
No, it won't be as good as Leicester's.
I don't know.
No, stop.
I don't know. I think it will. I'll tell you why. Because Leicester was a fluke. Leicester was a complete fluke. All the other teams were crap that one year.
You can't say a fluke is winning the league in 38 games.
Let me build a case for this.
Okay.
Because this Man City team are winning games routinely, and they're 2-0 up after 40 minutes in every game they're playing at the moment. The game is over before half time. They're just in cruise control. Have they won 21 out of 22 games so far of their last 22 games? It's an unbelievable record. They've got so much money. They've got the best manager that we've seen in world football in 2 decades, and the whole system is built around his style of play and acquiring players that are rising to be brilliant at the moment. Liverpool have come from not great to this point where they're matching them stride for stride in the space of 2.5 years under Jurgen Klopp. If you remember back when Klopp signed, loads of players got injured and there was all this stuff about how Klopp couldn't actually manage a team properly. Yeah. And then the style of play emerged, and he changed it. He changed from a style of play that reached the Champions League final to be something completely different. And if they manage to topple this Man City team, I think it's going to be one of the greatest achievements that certainly that I've ever seen in football. I just don't think they're going to do it.
Yeah, there's 6 games to go. Man City have Spurs. They have them in 2 Champions League games, and then they have them the Sunday afterwards, which could be a bit shaky no matter how they go, because if they lose that, all the pressure will be on them to beat Spurs again. Spurs will have confidence we've beaten Man City over 2 legs.
That's Liverpool's big chance, really.
I think it is, yeah. And Man United as well as a derby game at Old Trafford, that can go anyway. They've also got Leicester, who've taken points off all the big teams. Now Liverpool have Chelsea, but they have them at home, so yeah, they have to look. We were kind of like it with our basketball season this year. We were always behind because we had a game in hand, whereas both teams have played all the games. Now Liverpool are chasing, so they are relying on somebody else to do something for them. So, but I don't know. I know Liverpool fans, and I'll never hear the end of it if you actually win the league. But I'd like to see Liverpool win more than Man City.
The win at the weekend, a last-minute surge or something like that.
Yeah, it's big. That's big momentum-wise, because that can carry you. They've got Southampton next, then they got the big Chelsea game. If they can get 6 points out of them, and in that time, the boys Man City have played Spurs, so it's...
The ecosystem of a dressing room is very fragile. Stuff like that begins to happen, and everybody starts to weirdly believe. It's completely superstitious, but it happens in sport.
It does happen in sport, and they were on a bit of a shaky patch, and they've had 4 wins out of their last 5 games, Liverpool, which is big at this time of the year. So yeah, they're keeping it on the tracks.
Okay, so news this morning from a press conference. 20 years of age, Wexford hurler Rory O'Connor is in the paper saying that by the time he finishes his career, he thinks players will be coming in and getting paid to play GAA. Now, if you think back to a report that was commissioned, one of those other GAA presidents commissioned it, that never saw the light of day, that actually advocated that players would be getting paid by the year 2034, far enough away in the distance so no one actually has to worry about it, but current enough that everybody has to have a conversation about it. Obviously, pay for play, it's never going to happen in the GAA. We all know that. It's an amateur organisation. But is he right? Is there a point in the future, Kieran, where somehow we actually just decide the right thing to do is to pay some players some money?
Look, he's talking about the work that goes into being an inter-county player, and absolutely it's huge, it's demanding, but if you don't think you can do it, or you don't have enough time to do it, there's going to be somebody else in the county that's going to jump in and do it. It is getting far more serious than it was. It's never going to be pay for play. I certainly think the GAA or someone should approach tax breaks. I think are the only way that players can get a break for what they're putting in for their counties, and what they're putting in to represent their counties, and what they're putting in to bring income into their counties on match days, going to hotels to eat after games. Everything that goes into being a county player has a knock-on effect on the community, and if your county is a good run in the competition, your club is a good run, there's a big knock-on effect there. But I think you can only get to the stage where if you've played for your county for 15 years, you get a certain tax break. If you play for your county for 10 years, you get a certain tax break. If you play for 5 years, you get a certain tax break. You're not coming in for a year. And
let me just play devil's advocate for a second.
Yeah,
what about the volunteer who's volunteered for 40 years and has never got a tax break? Like, how do you place the value?
I think the volunteer depends on the volunteer they're unbelievable in the GA community. We wouldn't function without the volunteers in every club. But what inter-county players are putting off on their actual lives to represent their counties now is a huge demand, whether it's college, whether it's staying in college for another few years so we can be professional footballers, because that's what a lot of kids are doing now, and that's wrong, because you need to get out into the workforce, you need to find out what you're about, you need to go earn money, you need to go buy a house, set your life up for your family and stuff.
What about the other thing that's happening, the drain on the best young players to the AFL, because the lure of professional sport is so great. So Mark O'Connor of Kerry heads off to the AFL to play. Apparently he's making a huge impression in the last few weeks, and apparently he's Kerry's best midfielder at the moment according to Owen Sheehan. So like, that's just going to continue to happen, right? It's going to happen more and more. It's going,
that's the lure of it. It's like the kid that's very good at soccer and very good at football, and next thing they get a call at 16 to go over to Southampton or somewhere. They're going to, it's a no-brainer. But like, I don't even think that the tax break is going to keep fellas in Ireland. I just think it's a reward for everything that they're doing that actually makes their life harder when they retire. We're going to have a lot of fellas retiring at 30 that might have 2 years of work behind them because they've been in college so long, or because they went and took breaks or whatever, or couldn't. Like, it's very hard for a guy to actually go in now at 8 o'clock, work till 6 every day. That's hard for an inter-county player to do. Where do you do your gym? Are you getting the right diet into you? There's so much that goes on. So I think tax breaks. Just give us tax breaks, Ger.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that.
Stop.
You're on an island there for now. Anyway, did the attacking mark work? This is what we want to ask about the league. So obviously the rules come in just for the league. We revert back to the old rules for the championship now, because that's how things work, and maybe they'll be introduced after Congress next year into the championship. Does the attacking mark work? Do we want the game to be more like Aussie rules? What the hell? What do you think, Kieran?
Yeah, do we want the game to be more like Aussie rules? What we want is trying to figure out the game to be more enjoyable for the viewer, more enjoyable for the person that goes to the game, that buys that ticket, that takes his family on a Sunday for a 3-hour drive up to watch a game. What we want to see is that buzz, and we get it in hurling all the time. The high ball is going in, it's 50-50. There's guys competing for it, there's guys scrapping for it. It brings great excitement to games. And I think what the mark brought to the GAA and the league was, it brought a bit of excitement again. That big ball was going into the square a bit more often by most of the teams would try it. And you know, it was something that was working, and some teams were getting joy off it, and fellas were catching the ball, and now you were able to play on and try and get a goal, which is always the answer. If you catch a ball in around the house, is to play on and try and get a goal. But if you land in the 3 or 4 around you, you take your mark and you take your point, and it encourages guys to kick in the ball a bit more, which encourages guys to take risks, which is what football has gone away from slightly, which is what I didn't like about it. It was a turnover was kicking it into the full forward or the corner forward or whoever, the big guy inside or a small guy, kicking it in high, turning it over, and it's a turnover, and it goes down in your stat sheet. Kieran had 3 turnovers again. Yeah, I took 3 risks. I was trying to put in 3 good balls to Tommy Welsh. Yeah. Like, are they turnovers? Oh, sorry. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Is that a real conversation that happened?
I would be saying that I fought long and hard to have it in, that if someone put in a diagonal ball, that it was not counted as a turnover, right? Just put it in and we'll talk about it afterwards. Let me try and worry about winning it. But it is a conversation that happened, because I felt fellas were getting a bit cautious with the ball, because turnovers and stats, and how many stats do you have, how many times do you have possession, how many turnovers did you have, how many kick passes, how many hand passes. You know, if you've 25 possessions and 23 hand passes, what are you really doing in the game? Like,
yeah,
you know,
who cares?
Yeah, who are you unlocking? What defence you in? Like the ball Aidan O'Shea put in the last day.
Yeah,
like,
what a sensational ball.
Yeah, he could have got it and hand passed it off, but he saw a goal, he saw a chance, and he delivers a pinger on the outside of his left, and it goes in around the house, and it's perfect, and they should get a goal off it. So it's yeah, I think the mark has been brilliant, and just because it's an Aussie rules rule, you know, we talked about it in Shot Clock episode 1. The 50-metre rule, if anybody's still listening out there, please bring it in so we can get rid of these fucking black cards and yellow cards. I
think it's a great idea. I mean, we should continue that lobbying campaign that we have. Let's move on and talk about Aidan O'Shea's performance, because we want to ask the big question is, who can actually dethrone Dublin? We've got 5 minutes on this. It's our proper analysis of the league campaigns of the 2 teams, and I think that you know, Aidan O'Shea's performance, and I think the return of James Horan has made it all makes sense. Everything that has happened over the last number of years now seems to me to make sense. That Horan went away, took a little bit of time out, thought deeply about what was happening in the game, thought about what he'd done wrong the last time, comes back. There's just a right blend of those young players coming through, expressing their leadership, and Look, I mean, it would be a massive outpouring of emotion for 30 counties. If Mayo were to win, it would give a lot of teams a bit of hope. And I think they're right there. I think they're just nipping at Dublin's heels at the minute.
Yeah, they are, and they were. You know, when you look at last week, when the game was there to be won, I think really it was just Mayo who grabbed it that bit more, and you know, probably that bit more desperate for the win. And it you know, we watch it as so much top level sport. It often boils down to that. It was just, we can talk the tactics and they do matter, and you can talk about instances in games, but it's the one percenters, it's the hunger levels around the pitch, it's the getting back, it's getting a hand in, it's taking a goal when some people say you should hand pass it over the bar. It's them little inches that make the difference, and I think Mayo have definitely, you're right, under James Horan, just found a bit of rejuvenation. That win against Kerry was their statement. They'd lost 2 and they came down to Tralee, down to Kerry, who hadn't lost, and they said, we're winning this game. And that's what it looked like 5 minutes in. I was doing commentary for Air Sport 5 minutes in. I looked at Willie Joe Haddon and I said, Kerry are in trouble. I just knew by the way they were going about it.
I think it's interesting too, listening to the clip that we played a little bit earlier on, when a team, it wasn't that they didn't want to win. It was like, oh, I'm not sure about this. Andy Moore was talking about, 8 o'clock this morning. If you'd said to me, I would have said, no, it doesn't actually matter. But then when you do win, there's a difference. It's like a dam bursts.
Yeah.
And I think that's what I'm most interested in seeing, what the impact of that is from Mayo's perspective. Is that so they've always been a mean team. You could see them going up against Dublin and never taking a backward step.
Yeah.
And almost no other team, maybe your team, but almost no other team has been the same. Even Tyrone, who traditionally would have been able to match Dublin, always took a backward step against Dublin as soon as Dublin smacked them in the mouth. That Mayo team never did. But there was just a little bit of something. There was something in the back of their head that was saying they're not going to get over the line. You get over the line in a big game like this, coming from behind the way they did, I think that has a knock-on impact and propels them into the summer as a very, very dangerous side.
Yeah, it probably propels them into kind of number 2 spot behind Dublin, really. I'd kind of Kerry there. I still think Kerry, if they get things right, I think possibly they might have to look at getting Sean O'Shea out to the middle of the field to play alongside Jack Barry. I think Diarmuid O'Connor was very good there the last day, but I think himself and Jack are very similar type players. They're both extremely talented athletes. They both work hard, and they both got great running ability, great carrying ability, but they're both similar. And I always found that in field, it's always good to have a kind of a fella that's solid defensively, that can carry, but then it's always good to have a footballer, and we've been very lucky to have Dave Moran for the last kind of nearly 10 years as a midfielder for Kerry, being a ball player, being able to give him the ball, and Dave's coming back, and that's going to be a huge thing for Kerry in the summer. But I think Kerry have so many forwards. I think you can get a guy like Sean O'Shea and say, Sean, go out to 8 there and get on as much. He can do the same from midfield that he does from centre forward. He can come on late and score points. He can take all the frees. He can use his athleticism. He can use his ball playing ability, and maybe not be tagged as hard as he was at centre back the last day, when they basically put Lee Keegan on him and said, wrap this kid up, just do what you did to Diarmuid Connolly them a few times and make his life a misery. And
is that an option, do you think? Is that being...
I played my first ever game against Sean O'Shea, and my first time ever coming across him, I knew of him, was playing midfield against him in a county championship quarter final, and he gave me a run around. Now I was probably 34 at the time, but he was brilliant. He was tough, he was hard, he was good. Right. He was good in the air. But again, it was his football that I found the hardest thing, because every time he got on the ball, he was taking me on. He was playing 1-2s. He was power running off me. So it was he is. It hasn't been looked at, and he probably played so well at centre forward for UCC and Kerry so far this year that people would be like, no way.
Yeah.
But just think about it. Like, Kerry have an amount of forwards. We're struggling for a ball player in midfield. We've tried Mark Griffin, who's been very good again, but solid, and a defensive presence, bursting forward, making runs. But again, there's no comparison in football ability between Sean O'Shea and any of the 3 of the other lads. And I think we just need a bit more footballing ability out around midfield. And, it'd free him up. It's much harder for a midfielder. Midfielders aren't tracked really to think like a centre back or a corner back, where they're constantly watching you as a man.
Yeah, so they
switch off you. Yeah, they switch off you, look over their shoulder, go help somebody, and then Sean is coming off your back. But I think something like that. Kerry I was happy enough with Kerry last day. but there was stages where we were making mistakes where, I don't know, was it tiredness? Was it that the running ability of Mayo eventually wears you down? But we made mistakes in the second half that were criminal, like, you know, turnovers.
I think though that, like we were talking a little bit about this earlier on, that Kerry are a team, because of their age profile, who will not be the same team come July and August, that actually their ability to growth, as the ground quickens in horse racing, like they're going to grow into themselves because they're such a young team.
Yep.
And actually being a young team is a real advantage at this stage of the year, where you've come so far that your growth can be exponential. Whereas I'd say with Mayo, we have a fair idea that Mayo are going to improve consistently over the course of the summer, but we know exactly what they're going to be. With Kerry, they've no ceiling. They could be anywhere, and they could be anything.
They could, and you know, I think the result the weekend was good for both sides. It'll put Kerry, you know, that 5 wins in a row, and you know, and then you know everything is going so smooth. It'll curb a bit of that, which is good for Kerry. We like being kind of, we like coming out of the long grass.
And there was no long grass if they'd won that game.
Yeah, well, if they'd have beaten Mayo in Tralee and beaten Mayo in Croke Park, they'd have won 8 in a row, and everyone would be saying, "Oh my God, Kerry, you're flying." So they're right there. They're right there. I think 1 or 2 tweaks, and yeah, I think it's going to be exciting. Them 2 teams are certainly knocking on the door. Realistically,
there's 4 teams, maybe 5, who consider themselves challengers to the Dubs. You've got Mayo and Kerry, who we've spoken about. Tyrone will obviously feel pretty good about life. And Galway and Monaghan beat them in the league. Are they sneaking into, if we were to rank top 5 contenders?
Yeah, I think Monaghan on their day are definitely in the top 5. I just don't know, did I see enough out of them after that first Dublin game in the league this year to merit that? But you know, you look at Donegal coming through again with Michael Murphy back fit. He's a big presence for them. They're going to be thereabouts. They're going to be in the Super 8s again. So I'd maybe sneak them into my top 5, but certainly Galway Tyrone is a hard one to pick who's ahead of who, because Tyrone, probably been in the All-Ireland final last year, would merit it, but I just think if Galway get it right with their defensive shape that they have, but if they can go away now for 6 or 7 weeks and kind of figure out, okay, get these few Currafin lads inside. What do you do? What's your movement? Can we learn a bit? Like put the egos away. If I them Currafin lads, I'd be coming in and, what are you doing? If I was the manager of God, what are you doing in training? What do you like to do?
3-man weaves though, right?
We've talked about the 3-man weaves, but I think they're doing a bit more than 3-man weaves. But I think actually they just have a bunch of smart players, Currafin, and I think the more of them you can get into your forward lineup, the better. So, and you've Damien Comer coming back.
So let's rank them. Mayo number 1
to challenge Dublin.
Yeah.
Mayo.
Oh, you want to say Kerry? You want to say Kerry? So, okay, so Kerry number 1.
We'll give Mayo number 1.
All right, okay. So it goes Mayo number 1, Kerry number 2.
Yeah, I think Galway, if they can get Comer and the Currafin lads in, and Tyrone. That's very tight between Tyrone and Galway, but I think they are the top 4 or 5 teams in the country with Dublin. And then you've got your Monaghans, your Donegals after that.
Okay, so Tyrone are ahead of Donegal just a little bit.
Yeah, oh yeah.
All right, good stuff. That was... Sure, we'll see, I suppose.
Sure, we'll see, I suppose.
But I don't feel the same way about Dublin this year as I have done in previous years, where they are unstoppable, where you kind of know, look, this is all just charade this year. It doesn't feel that way. It feels like they're going to get games, that there will be doubts, that we haven't seen Dublin perform at a level that we know they're capable of since last year. And even last year, they were kind of grand. Yeah,
Dublin always have the answers. And it's until somebody can prove that they don't have enough answers in a day, that's when we're going to find out when this team are beaten. But up to now, in the last 4 years, whatever way you throw it at them, whether you do what we did in 16 and you win 5 points up and you're get all the momentum, they figure it out, they come back and beat you. Whether they can see 2 own goals against Mayo, they'll come back and beat you. So somebody's going to have to test them properly and test their pulse and have the physical ability to play with them, but also have the bit of magic, have the bit of picardia that somebody's going to, up front, is going to just have one of those games where an Andy Moran gets 2-4 or David Clifford gets 2-5. It's going to need someone to grab it by the scruff of the neck, and that's down the road, and that's what it's going to take a team to do.
Yeah, and it's something to look forward to properly. Shot clock is over. Kieran, good stuff. Thanks very much.
Thanks a million, Ger.